Hi, I'm Rohit. Welcome to my channel, Loving Soulfully, where we talk about self-love, soul love, and divine love. So in earlier videos, I've talked to you about the authentic self or the soul. Today, we're going to talk about the ego and why it's important and how you can create a rock-solid self-esteem, learning how to work with your ego, learning how to enhance it, and how to make it unshakable. If you want real true confidence, a true authentic existence in this world, then this video is for you. So as I was saying, self-esteem is such a powerful part of who we are. Well, what is it? And let's begin to really unravel and unpack this thing. You know, the fact of the matter is, when you were born as a child, you didn't even know your name. Your name was given to you. And then your parents told you things about yourself, and your teachers and your friends and the environment, the world, told you who you are. That you're smart, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're beautiful. Whatever it was that they told you is what got programmed into this mind computer. That's how I think of the mind, because it is a self-programming computer. Fascinating in the way it works. But altogether, it creates a composite of who you are. In other words, your identity. That identity is vital for you to function in this world. If that identity is in any way messed up or is negative, well, you're going to have low self-esteem. If that identity is built in a constructive way to give you a strong sense of who you are, a strong sense of your strengths and your qualities, then you will have what is called high self-esteem. Unfortunately, the problem is that if it's too high, it can become narcissistic. If it's too low, it can go towards a sense of depression or a sense of lack of confidence and inability to function in the world. The ego is always with us. It is our identity. It is who we think we are. It is not who we are. It is who we think we are. The soul is the authentic self. It is who we are. But our ego is who we think we are. In the absence of the soul being awake, the ego is running the show. And if it is not in a healthy state, just as if your car is not in a healthy state, then you will have all kinds of problems. Remember, you're not the car. You're the driver of the car. The authentic self or the soul is the driver of this body-mind organism. And the ego is the mind part of the vehicle that you inhabit. Okay? I don't know if I'm being clear out here. Let me know in the comments if there's anything not clear out here, because I'm trying to run through a lot of material for you. So what makes the ego healthy or confident, as you might say, and what makes it unhealthy and what makes it narcissistic? Let's take a look at all three of these. What makes the ego healthy is self-awareness, knowing who you are, what your habits are, what your likes and dislikes are. And so that's why most psychologists will pay a lot of emphasis on this, getting to know yourself, getting to know your strengths, working on your weaknesses. If, however, you become identified with your weaknesses, if you generalize those weaknesses, and I'm always messing up, I'm not good enough, I make so many mistakes, I've done so many stupid things, whatever it is, if you start to doubt yourself, self-doubt, that is the biggest killer of self-esteem or a healthy ego. You will also, along with that, begin to feel not good enough. You will start to go spiral downwards in terms of your work, in terms of your confidence, in terms of your ability to function in the world. A healthy person knows their limitations, knows their strengths, knows their weaknesses, and is able to talk about them in a healthy way. A narcissistic person, however, is a very interesting species. They actually try to cover their weaknesses by making themselves feel grandiose. The ego itself is a kind of mask, the mask to the real self. It's the mask that we wear to interface with the world. It is the way in which we are able to present ourselves. We want to look good. But the narcissistic person takes that to the nth degree or the ultimate degree and wants to look amazing, wants to be fantastic, thinks in superlatives, thinks of themselves with grandiosity. And I'm not trying to go into a whole study of narcissism out here. That's a huge chapter. We're not going to go into it. But it is just trying to show you the range that the ego can occupy. Now, the problem with the ego is this: it is fragile by nature and it needs validation, because in and of itself it doesn't know itself. So it needs to be validated, it needs to be formed, right? And because it's a fragile thing, it can also be unformed, it can be destroyed. For example, if you lived in a very critical home, or if you had a very critical partner, or a very critical boss, your ego would gradually be chipped away at, and you would start to lose confidence. And even things that were ordinary or things you could do easily will suddenly become very, very difficult for you. Now, what an ego requires is validation. For the most part, people rely on external validation, and that external validation has to come from others. If people praise you, if people say good things to you, if you're able to prove yourself, if you've made a lot of money and people admire you, if you're famous, if you're successful, you get tons of external validation. What if you don't? The outcome of that is we end up becoming very stressed, having to work hard. We may feel drained, burnt out. We pay a heavy price to get that external validation. Okay, so what's the way out? Internal validation. Yes, okay. Let's try that one out for size. Internal validation is where you speak positively, encouragingly, motivationally, and validate yourself. One technique that is used for that is what's called affirmation. And affirmations work. I'm not saying they don't. But the problem is our mind tends to be critical and we tend to affirm ourselves. So these two go into conflict with each other. At times you're affirming yourselves, at times you're criticizing yourself. Which one should I believe? Which one should the ego accept? Which one should it reject? Because we believe both, we're left in limbo, in a confused state. And there is no consistent sense of self. The sense of self is therefore shaky. And you try to preserve it by hanging out with people who are positive and who say nice things to you. You try to avoid the people who are negative, critical, or harsh on you. And that can be, a really difficult game to navigate, because you can't escape them all. There's going to be bosses, there's going to be parents, there's going to be partners who will be critical. And what are you going to do? How will you stand in the fire of that with something that is unshakable? That's going to be our next step. I'm going to take you to how you can create that unshakable sense of self, that rock solid ego that can take on the world without being in any way damaged or scarred by the bruises that come across from day-to-day life. So let's take a look at how to do that. To understand how to do that, we need to understand how the ego was in fact formed. How did your sense of self get formed? It begins with a very simple example. Think of a child who's sitting at a dinner table, and the child spills the glass of juice or Coke or whatever it is that they're having, and that drink goes all over their clothes and all over their food, and the mom gets really mad at the child and says, "Look at what you've done. You've made such a mess. The drink is all over the clothes, it's all over your food. You are such a clumsy child. I don't know what to do with you. Wherever I take you," the other day I took you to Aunt Jenna's place and you did the same thing over there, and at Uncle John's place and you did the same thing over there. Now this mother has done three things. She's described what the child did and how the juice or the drink was all over the food and all over the clothes. She's given the child a label that you're so clumsy, what is wrong with you? And thirdly, she's created a pattern, a history that goes into the different times when this occurred. Once the ego, the mind, is faced with these three components, it is unable to stay away from the evidence because it's already got the proof that this is what you did and the places in which it happened and the label of being a clumsy person. So there's no getting out of it. Now you're stuck with that label. So the same thing could happen to a teenager who's told, your room is such a mess, you're such a pig, you're so messy. And now that child is stuck with that label and is going to continue doing the same thing. Once a person has been labeled, they're going to continue doing the same thing. They're going to be on autopilot, and nothing you say can take them out of that unless you create a campaign. Now, what kind of campaign? We've talked about how affirmations are a weak process because they lack the component of evidence and they lack the component of a history. We need to be able to bring these three elements together and to do it from a place that is unshakable, that is consistently positive, that is consistently confident, that is consistently powerful, that is consistently wise and strong and capable. That place is the authentic self or the soul. And a simple way to access that part of you is to take a deep breath. Try any form of meditation, but I prefer just take a deep breath, go out of your head, come into your body. Your true self, your authentic self, is the place of the highest form of confidence. And so connect with that part of you, and you might begin by feeling a sense of peace. And then you might begin to notice other qualities and aspects of this self. I suggest creating a journal, writing down the qualities of this authentic self. Now, I'm not saying there's any harm in knowing the egoic self as it exists. Certainly know its qualities. But remember, you have a critical mind. In a different video, I'll talk to you about how to deal with your critical mind and how to stop it from doing what it does. But let's get a real foundation out here. Something that is not going to be subject to the ego's whims and fancies. Okay? So take a deep breath, come into this part of you. You'll feel that inner peace. And along with that, you're going to notice this part of you has other qualities. It is peaceful and loving, kind. So you have these labels, right? It is wise. It is timeless, perhaps even eternal. Indestructible. Notice these aspects of that inner self, write down the qualities, and then keep revisiting like a pattern. Keep revisiting and re-noticing those aspects of this authentic self. Know from now on that this is your identity and these are its qualities. And as you develop that sense of your authentic self and let inform your ego, inform your mind. This is me. This is the true self. This is who I am. The more you program that into your ego by reminding it, by noticing, by observing the qualities, and then reaffirming those labels, noticing from time to time to time, again and again through repetition, you will reprogram the ego. You will form a solid base of self, and you'll be able to live in the world from your authentic self. That, to me, is the most powerful way of living your life. A self that is by nature worthy of great value and is an identity that cannot be shaken, is rock solid and invincible. If you'd like to have that kind of sense of self, if you would like to walk with that quality of being, of presence, of dynamic energy in the world, try this out. Experiment with what I've talked about. Do not believe me. Do it. Try it and see what happens. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any doubts. Let me know if you've tried it. And once you try it, let me know what your successes are or what your failures are, whether it's working for you or not working for you. I'm here to support you and help you get there. Everything I'm talking about is something I apply in my life and something I can show you how to go deeper with. So if you're ready to go on this path, go for it. Let me know how you're doing and trust that I will respond to every single comment that you make. All right? For now, thank you so much for joining me here. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you like these videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you.